Here we are, folks. Another Tuesday evening. Welcome, welcome. Great to have everybody on, and enjoyed the pre-show chat as normal. It's been quite interesting just seeing the various suggestions and comments, and the idea of a Zoom get-together is something which I will take seriously. So keep an eye on that for ahead. I've got Tony queued up ready to come in a moment or two. I'll just run this for another 30 seconds so that you can get time to get on board. We've got quite a few on already and more coming, I see. Here are the dogs, of course, completely flat out. We took them for a walk earlier on, and they're now completely, zonked, really. Hope they stay like that. They get a bit excited when the vans go by, particularly when they empty the trash. And for those who've not been here before, if you want to see the studio, this is my setup. Got Tony over here ready to come in a moment. We've got the various controls for the system here, the chat, the multi-view over there, and my other screen here. And I've also got the control screens here for the stream. So it's quite an operation, but everything is pretty much running smoothly now, I'm pleased to say. So that's all working well. Anyway, let's get the pre-show off. I'm going to run the start show. I'll be back in just a moment. Well, good evening and welcome to this live stream on the 19th of March, 2024. It's Martin North here from Digital Finance Analytics. Great to have you on, and nice to see some familiar faces and also some new names too. So welcome, welcome. And, as I always say on these shows, they only work because you're here and asking the questions and making the comments. So feel free to do that. Just before I bring Tony in, let me just remind you, as I always do, that we don't provide specific financial or legal advice on this channel. This is a general conversation. We do moderate the chat, but feel free to throw your comments and suggestions into the chat. And this is as at the 19th of March, 2024, if you're watching in replay. If you'd like to get a question directly to me and Tony, if you use that Walk the World, then that goes into my separate queue, and that means I'm more likely to see it. And also, I've enabled Super Chat, which means that if you want to make a contribution to what we do around here, or indeed get your question top of the list, you can do that using Super Chat. And as I often say, don't do this for profit. I do this because I think there's a really important conversation to be had. And frankly, I think the mainstream media are letting us down, so there are things we want to talk about. Anyway, with that, I'm going to bring Tony in and we'll get started. Tony, hello, welcome.
Good evening, Martin, whatever time it is there. And good evening to all your viewers. This channel has just absolutely gone to the next level, and I'm almost not worthy to be here. And I'm going to admit to some pre-show nerves today. I'm going to come up with something new. My presentation style and my slides haven't really changed. But yeah, so to speak, I'm coming out as the master of my own surveys. Actually, I should have said that closer together. I can guarantee you I'm a he, him, and I have a future wife. And what's been quite good the last 3 weeks is we flew my mother-in-law over from Hungary, and I've had a 3-week holiday. It's been amazing. And the 2 words I've been hearing are Anthony, sport, and the 3 magic words are Anthony, good boy. So I'm a winner with the mother-in-law, and yeah, much happier to be at home and doing these shows and just seeing how happy my partner is with the mum here. So happy days, and yeah, hopefully my nerves will dissipate a bit. But yeah, I still, this is actually hard work going on camera and being a provider of information rather than a keyboard warrior. So, people should really at least give us some admiration rather than bag the shit out of us, because I've got no agenda. I'll just tell it how it is. My nickname's Truth Bomb Tony, and if I drop a few, that's it. So great to be here, Martin. I really appreciate the support you've given me, and I think I should shut up now.
No, that's great, Tony. Well, great to have you on again. And,
Yeah.
there'll be a few people wanting to play Locantro Bingo, of course, with some of your famous sayings. But, there's a really interesting conversation to be had about what's going on in the world. And we're a bit philosophical on this channel. And I think that's important because quite a lot of the conversations that other people are having are a little, what shall I say, myopic, I think, in terms of the way they think. But both you and I join the dots a little bit, and I think we're going to do a bit of that. But of course, there are quite a few people in the chat asking about the monkey, so you'll have to explain about the monkey.
Oh, that's an in-joke. Myself and Juliana have given the name of the monkey as one of my friends, and it relates to a saying. And what a gift, $20 at IKEA, and he's a regular to these shows, a regular on my interviews, so he'll hang about. I do have some other toys of my my dog. He's an Akita, actually. He's got the best personality, but you just don't want to be a cat. So yep, the monkey stays.
Excellent. Now, I should just explain, for some reason, my chat isn't working this evening, so I can see it on one screen, but I can't see it on the other one, so I'm not sure what happened there. So apologise for not being able to show the on-screen chat tonight, but I'll read out the comments as we go. So, Tony, I think we're going to start with a bit of a presentation from your end, so you might want to fire up your screen share.
Yeah, new style of slides tonight. God, AI is a beast, isn't it?
amazing what you can do.
It's amazing. And the guy that helps me with this, I think he's pretty much accepted the fact that he's out of a job. I mean, it'd be like owning a fleet of Blockbuster stores or a DVD business. I guess you just have to go with the times. But shit, it's going to decimate a lot of industries. And yeah, so more to follow on that. Look, tonight I'm going to start off with a disclaimer. Pretty much none of this can be taken as personal advice. I don't know how much risk you guys like to take. I know Cookie's at that extreme end of risk, which is fantastic. But yeah, if you have any doubts, you want to discuss it, go to your better half, or ask someone and see who cares. But anyway, I'll start with that. I'm just going to tell the truth. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not selling you anything. I'm not an influencer. Anyway, that's the disclaimer, guys. Read that at your leisure. So this is the topic. I think, are we being complacent before the storm, or is this the new norm? And I think this is a very important subject to discuss, because from what I'm seeing, I am on the complacent side. I'm certainly thinking that that's the way we've become. And normally when you're complacent, that's when you're going to get slapped around. And no, that AI there, Martin, that is top shelf stuff there. So basically, I've found that this channel, I've met a lot of really lovely people. And one of my best clients I've ever met, I've been doing this stuff coming up to 26 years, was Simon El Rahi. Martin, he was one of your biggest fans. And we became quite good friends. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him. Not only is Simon an iconic actor, if you want to watch something different, he's currently starring in what would have been his last program, House of Gods on the ABC. He was in The Last King of the Cross. I joked about him, how many cigarettes he had. He said they were herbal, they were safe. But I've just so wanted to meet Simon through this channel. I knew he was in a bit of trouble, and I thought, well, I'll leave Simon alone. And I paid the price for that. I guess I was hoping that there'd be a miracle that he'd get better. But he died in November last year. And certainly one of the nicest people you'll ever have to deal with. And he spoke about the industry a lot. He was a mentor to a lot of young actors. He plays the I don't know, he's got that look about him, which just an amazing actor. So anyway, I thought I'd dedicate the program to him. I don't like losing any clients, but when they're one of the best. But anyway, to his family, I know that it's all downhill from here, guys, unfortunately, because back to regular proceedings. So the new norm. I'm hoping that's not it. That's certainly something that certainly the path I could have headed down. I don't know how many of you are around my age, but we have the old norm up in the background, and I just think that that's a way of life. You know, I did my best to avoid. You know, you get down, you just don't have any motivation, and your life becomes a mess. And I'm hoping that what we're going through at the moment, that people can lift themselves up and make some positive changes. Anyway, that's quite a disgusting photo, but that's AI these days, guys. So anyway, I'm just going to discuss all the important issues here. These three women have pretty much blown up the internet. Sam Kerr, apparently on a night out in London, had a vomit in a taxi. We don't know what she called the police officer exactly, but something along the lines of a white stupid cop or a white stupid bastard. I don't know. I didn't spend too much time on this thinking about it. I actually worked at Redfern Police Station during the mid-90s riots, and I was called a white chocolate raspberry muffin on more than one occasion. So I just thought, well, okay, toughen up. So whether or not it's racist, who knows? But that was a huge issue. I guess it's not a good look for someone who's apparently a role model to lots of young girls. So I'm hoping she can get through that along with her ACL. Kate Middleton doctored a photo. To what extent, I don't know, but you know, X is alive with these conspiracy theories about King Charles, about Kate, about William, about affairs. Anyway, yep, I could spend my life on that conspiracy theory. I was out walking Colin. Colin's my Akita that I rescued from the dog shelter. And I looked up and I actually saw my first UFOs, and they were going across the sky in perfect formation. When I got home, I Googled it, and apparently it was the Starlink satellites. So anyway, worth watching. And the lady on the right, Sydney Sweeney, she's blowing up the internet. I think it's due to her earrings and her IQ level. So yeah, no complaints, people. We're discussing all the hot issues on DFA. Now, this is the lady that should be blowing up our internet, Michelle Bullock. So she's addressed the crowd today, rates on hold. I guess it's really complacency here. No one really expected much action, but in which direction do they go next? We've got those who are saying we're going to get cuts later this year. Shane Elliott from the ANZ says, don't be so quick. Are we going to get more of a holding pattern? I just think, you know, that they're at the point now where some tough decisions have been made. And when you go into these decisions, I just think it reeks of complacency. And for those interested, I just glanced at the new schedule of the RBA meetings, and I think they have 2 days. They go into camp for 2 days, and they'll come out on the second day with a decision. And if I'm correct, I think the next one is on the 7th of May. Are we just going to have a simple hold? Who knows? But I don't see much in the way of relief. Interestingly, there's been a bit of publicity about Japan the end of cheap money in Japan. The Japanese going into stagflation, which is actually far worse than being sandpapered to death, or for a carnivore like me being scrubbed in beef tallow. So there you go. I think we're certainly at an interesting point in the world. But she doesn't smile a lot. But I think she's delivered the right dose of. I think she's quite assertive. She's quite stern, kind of a no bullshit school principal type. But I guess we're all keep an eye out for the 7th of May. So thanks to Cookie Boy. So what we're seeing is a real absolute shit show in the real estate rental buyers market. We've got record low stock everywhere. That article refers to Brisbane. We've got some sheds going in Perth for $320 a week. And I just looked at those rental increases. Suburbs like Adderale up 35% in January. North Coogee up 32%. Aurelia, which is where investors are buying, unseen. Hey, wake up. These suburbs are cheap for a reason. Nedlands, where you need a passport to go to, up 22%. Dianella, around not far from where I live, actually, rents to $700. So if you look at how families are being squeezed, it's just absolutely atrocious, because you're looking at $36,000, $37,000 post-tax before you get anywhere. And I follow realestate.com, and I keyed in houses in Perth for rent up to $600 a week, and there's 453 properties. That's a house. That could be a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom shitbox with an outside toilet. But then if you increase the amount to $700 a week, there was 909 properties available. And at this point, I've actually noticed a bit of a slight increase. Realestate.com had total properties at 2,032 last I looked. Now it's up around 2,300. But if you're looking for anything in that 600-700 range, or actually trying to go anything cheaper, I mean, you've got the Buckley family tree of finding that. And down the bottom, there's an outdoor bed, an Airbnb, $130 a night in Perth, and the owners justified that by saying that it's good to sleep outdoors. So there you go. There's $900 a week for looks like a mattress outside somewhere near a granny flat. So really, I don't know how anyone can be cheering what's going on in this country. We had, obviously, COVID's put things out of whack, but it's just been an absolute, it's an atrocity with what's happening with the rents, with what's happening with the markets. It's just so out of kilter. But I'm just going to reiterate to everyone, this isn't the new norm. I don't know what's going to break it. It'll have to be, I think, a gradual event. We will get towards the norm and then perhaps even overshoot to the downside. But whilst I was putting this together, I thought in a normal market, a family could sell their 1.6 million 2-bedroom home in Campsie with 1 bathroom and then go and rent somewhere. And then they say, hey, ka-ching, we'll take our lotto win. But now you're at the point where you just can't simply sell at an overpriced level and find a rental. You'll have to go and rent a motorhome. You'll have to go and put your stuff in storage, waste hours selling your crap on Gumtree for no return, and then look for somewhere else to live. Do you couch surf? Do you move somewhere? Exactly. But that isn't a normal market. And I guess the fact that you just can't simply switch between owning and renting indicates how much that market is out of kilter. But again, I know you've discussed it a lot, Martin, but it really, if this doesn't put people into stress, I don't know what will, if they're not already stressed already. So I went through some of your material, Martin, and that's great. Well, it's not great, but it shows you're under budget pressures, missing payments. I'd love to get every late fee back. I'm a bit lazy. I don't know. I'm a procrastinator. But no, I'm certainly not one to pay my bills early. And then families become insolvent. And I look at the number of speculators that have opened up cafes, that have opened up businesses, that have opened up boutique building firms. Essentially, a speculator like I am, or a farmer, where they haven't done the research and they've actually absolutely been squeezed. But businesses are going under. You're going to see lots of full lease signs, commercial real estate. You're going to see lots of shops closed down and boarded up. And maybe some of our cities will start to look like Dublin circa 2010. But again, we haven't really had a serious uptick in unemployment. And businesses, I think, are struggling. I've certainly given up takeaway coffee where possible. And I've given up, actually, my diet's kind of restricted me from going out a bit. Mind you, Crown Epicurean's a good place for a carnival. But yeah, I think we're all going to stop spending. We're all going to stop buying crap where people have thought they could have a side gig and do some nice craft and art, because in the end, all of that shit means nothing if it's not cash. And from a financial household perspective, I'm going to start looking around the house for anything that, just to raise a bit of cash. Obviously, the best time to sell stuff was yesterday, and just see where we can raise some money. And at least can't raise some money, give it to charity. But I think that personal stress is only going to increase. That's probably the scariest chart that I've ever seen, Martin. And people say, well, okay, why hasn't things cracked yet? Sure, you're going to see people paying $3 million to live in a crap hole in Bondi that needs a couple of $1 million spent on it. You're going to see all the news stories, but you look into the lower priced houses, the mid stuff. It's actually hard, and you try and sell into this market at a price where you're looking for your break even. And I'd say in some cases, good luck with that. But mortgage stress, rental stress, that's just through the roof. When you've got rents in Perth going up around 40%, and that probably coincides with meth use going up 40% as well. So again, mortgage stress, a huge issue. Mortgage stress then leads to social stress, domestic violence, you name it. There was actually some articles I've read where couples are electing to stay together because they can't afford the legal fees to get divorced. So again, you're forced to stay together during COVID, and now you can't afford to break your marriage or relationship because you simply can't afford it. So I guess there'll be lots of hall passes given out. Again, more frightening figures. You look at WA there, not looking pretty. You look at Tasmania, where the housing bubble really took off. The speculative money headed south that didn't want to go to Adelaide or Perth. And I think buying property in Tasmania, it's a bit like Scientology. Easy to get into, impossible to get out of. And that's what Australians have and overseas investors have become attached to, simply going in. Lot of houses in some really less than desirable suburbs in Perth being bought with people not even looking at them. Yeah, you know, meth lab with a chance of a drive-by in some cases, or cloudy with a chance of meatballs. But again, it's just FOMO-driven insanity. We've seen some of our least desirable suburbs up around 40%. They were good buys. Some houses in certain areas you could buy with a 1 in front of them, a low 2, but that window's closed. But I'll say to people that there's still lots of value within a 12-kilometre radius of the Perth CBD, Karrinyup Shopping Centre and Trig Beach. So there's still value around. You just have to buy, slightly dodge. I've noticed that the amount of discarded nangs in my area is virtually down to 0. But again, stress. We've got a lot of, mind you, we've got a lot of houses being bought without mortgages. So yeah, good luck with that. Thanks again to Cookie. So we've got migrant levels at record highs. We've got the influx of the Irish. Anyone out on St. Pat's Day would realise that. And again, they're competing with us for places to live, places to rent. A lot of the Irish I know tend to live up in the northern suburbs of Perth. That area just keeps getting extended by the freeway and new railway stations. But I can understand the amount of anger towards this. We are competing, you know, for limited space. And if you want to rent a room out with 11 other people, you're looking at a ridiculous rate. And I think landlords are certainly cashing in on what's a great shortage. So I've been doing my own surveys, guys. Anyway, here it comes. There you go. In October last year, I thought I'm going to have a go at the gig economy. So I went through all the procedures, and I've been driving Uber, and I've absolutely enjoyed the experience. I think, and funnily enough, it coincided with the worst months of my career, actually, as a stockbroker. So I used to get 30, 40, 50 phone calls a day. That dropped down to about 3. And yeah, this was quite an interesting thing to do. Obviously, in my previous career, I was a police officer, so I'm used to driving for long periods. But this has probably been the biggest eye-opener of my life. I've done over 1,200 trips. I've picked up every type of person possible, in the literal sense. And I think it's like a university degree in human psychology, human behaviour. What I have noticed that there's no shortage of people going to Sunday sessions and talking about how many cocktails they're going to consume. I had a really polite kid on a long trip, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm really sorry, but I need to yak." And that was that intense panic that you go through on that. I had a female sit in the front, and she said, "I'm as drunk as shit. I've taken 3 Valium. I hope you don't mind, but I'm on the way to my niece's ballet concert." But on the whole, it's been positive. You'd actually be surprised how many people are aware not only of the cost of living pressure. There's quite a big awareness of the real estate madness over east. I have done a lot of trips with the Irish, and they're loving it here, but they all want to live in Scarborough or Freo. So, you know, I mentioned to them, look, you're looking at a minimum of $700 a week for anywhere decent to live. Haven't really had to play any tactics. Can get frustrating staying around the airport. But what it has done is it's taught me the value of money. And I look at expenditure as to how many hours do I have to drive, how much is that relative to a lamb roast or a kilo of steak. But on the whole, pretty much 99.99% of people are simply doing their best. The minority have caused me some grief. But I just think really it's just been great for my mental health. But what probably the key takeaway for me has been that when my job wasn't cranking, this was easy. I had the mental and physical energy to do this, but as soon as actually my job has just gone nuts lately, and I'm taking up to 70 phone calls a day. I've had a few stocks that have done some weird shit. And that's every phone call is a mental battle. And the last thing you want to do is get in the car and drive. And I think my concern for families out there is you just can't get an easy second job if your first one is demanding. And I think that's a lesson that I've certainly learnt. I'm not afraid to show you some earning examples. So plenty of surveys. I've had some great networking, met a lot of people on the mines, learned a lot about gold, iron ore, life of FIFO, met some famous or semi-famous people. Actually, no, I wouldn't call him famous, but lots of good chat. I think a lot of passengers are stunned that I'm not bad at holding a conversation. If I want to kill the conversation, I'll just simply tell them plants are trying to kill you and fruit is bad for you, and awkward silence the rest of the way. For those wondering, the best vocal performances whilst driving come from Goo Goo Dolls' Iris. That's the song that most people sing to. I have a default position of easy listening, but I have a playlist for everyone. So there we go. 4.99. Someone gave me 1 star, said I was rude. Acceptance rate 94%. Basically, I accept 94%. My cancellation rate's 0. On a typical weekend, you can work out that that's $43 an hour there from the 4th to the 11th of March. Probably my hardest working week was Christmas to New Year's, where again I went hard at it. That was quite good. They paid a $220 bonus. I got $88 in tips plus cash, so that came in at about $43 an hour. Don't ever think that's gross. That's gross. So I've got to pay for my own fuel. But I think the mental health benefits and getting out of the house and doing something different it's certainly been worth it. So, yeah, happy to discuss that. It's certainly not for everyone. And my fear is that I've noticed that drivers in New Zealand are already complaining about heavily diluted earnings. And I guess we're going to have a flood of people. But anyway, they're my surveys, Martin. So what I'm doing now pretty much is sticking with how I've got through the last 25, 26 years. And that's looking at the real unloved and downtrodden stocks on the market. I'm a contrarian. Having a contrarian mind means that not only do you'll never win a footy tipping comp because my contrarian mind's taken over already, but you spend a lot of your time underwater and you're buying assets pretty much that no one else wants to own. You're buying companies that no one wants to own. And then you're going to cop it. You're going to cop. It's like that poor guy, that poor kid there. But I will say that prior to this program and getting to know Cookie quite well, I'm going to come out and say that Cookie is one of the best back foot buyers of unloved little stocks I've ever seen. And I hope you're not embarrassed by that, Cookie, but not only do you help out a lot of people, but geez, you've got some balls. And I think some might think you're just a keyboard warrior, but nothing could be further from the truth. So that's what I do. I help people try and buy undervalued assets with a view that one day they'll turn around. Sometimes they turn around a lot sooner. I love gold stocks. If you want to look at a mismatch, you don't have to look at our competitor at the moment, Married at First Sight. You just have to look at the gold price relative to junior gold equities. And with near record high gold prices, the gold stocks have been unloved. You can buy stocks for a quarter, a third to what they would be trading at in any given market. So I've certainly identified some great gold stocks. Obviously, the producers have done well, but the key is to buy when no one else wants to. In biotechs, one of my little tiddlers, which was certainly the red-headed stepchild of the family, it had a reasonably good announcement, pardon me, but it actually went up over 400% in the day. And that was just, pardon me, it was just, I guess the dopamine hit it was just wild. And I had clients that had bought the stock a week earlier that in the end were suddenly up 700%. I had clients that were now looking at getting close to a break even. And it was just one of those occasions that just goes to show that downtrodden assets, those that are unloved, can suddenly become popular. I'm not going to do a deep dive through my stocks. I think most of you know where to find me, but I just think in this era that small caps have been certainly beaten up for the last couple of years. I think the majority to some extent in other assets have done exceptionally well. But I just think it's a sector that will continue regardless of the economy, regardless of where property goes. But there are very exciting opportunities out there. I research them, and I'm just looking for everything I buy. I'll look with a 400 to 500% return. And again, you've just got to put up with a couple of years being underwater and copying shit on social media. But as I say to people, markets largely are a collective of people with no friggin' idea what they're doing, and it's up to us to make the most of it. But again, pretty scary, those AI images. So what I've done, I have as my pinned tweet, I recorded a video of my top stocks for 2024. That's my pinned on X. So you're welcome to have a look there. Some of them have shown some good signs already. We have diversified. We're also into the likes of silver, coppers making a bit of a comeback, rare earths, interestingly, with Gina Rinehart backing Arafura, and the government's now backing them. That's a rare earths company with the project near Alice Springs. So there's lots to like about the value in the sector. I have Ron Osborne, who does a lot, has built me a website. I don't need to run through all the stocks. You can sign up there and I'll send you some insights. I think I've understated and over-delivered, but that's up for debate. And what else have I been doing? So pretty much exercising. I'm not as cut as this guy. No alcohol, haven't had a drink for 15 months. I say no to carbs where I can. I say no to sugar. I pretty much eat meat. I do have a few little sweets. Basically, ice cream with a bit of stevia and vanilla paste. But on the whole, I've stuck to this regime. Since I've been strict, I haven't had any cheat meals. I'm in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I'm not skimping. I'm loving it. The mental clarity and is great. I'm now wearing a size 39 shirt, and and my life trajectory was heading towards norm in the first slide. And I just think that we certainly underestimate the need to look at our lives, especially when we're under financial, emotional, and all the other stresses that are only going to intensify. And if I could give everyone a lecture, if there's one takeaway, pun intended, that you could take away from what I'm doing, is just cut out seed oils, cook your stuff in animal fat, smear yourself in beef tallow, give up cosmetics and all that shit. So anyway, that's the end of the formal presentation.
Tony, that was very interesting. Thank you. And as you say, slightly different mode of engagement, but wonderful content nevertheless. And a lot of people in the chat were talking about it. Alison says, I love carbs. So Eric asked, what happened to your blood pressure? Do you know? Has it dropped or what?
I actually went 115 on 75 recently. Which is, I think that's almost normal. It's certainly within the healthy range, but I was 150 on 90. I think honestly, we could have a week, and multi-long hour show on health industry. I'd rather leave it, Martin, but there's just so much. I guess we all just go with the flow, and I know viewers don't like to listen to bullshit, but from my extensive research, I've found something that works for me. I don't suggest, and the good thing is you can pretty much do it as an elimination diet. Just eat meat, seafood, dairy, eggs for a month, and then gradually add stuff in if you miss your vegetables, for sure. But I think from what I've learned is that the real, apart from Dr. Kellogg, you don't really want to research him, but guys like Ansel Keys, the Harvard scientists that were paid off to demonize fat over sugar, that's led to well over 60 years of the health of people just going downhill. But anyway, that's a totally different story. But during the quiet times, I've done a lot of research, and I'm happy, and it works. So I guess do your own research, and as Scott Pape would say, choose your own path.
Yeah, I think choose your own path. But what we do know is that a lot of the manufactured food that a lot of people eat has very high salt content and very high sugar content, not least because those two ingredients are extremely cheap. And so they can bulk out essentially the weight of the food that's actually being sold. And they might dress it up as looking healthy or looking good. But actually, if you peel back the onion and look at what's actually making up, then, you'd probably have a different thought. So, understanding that what you eat does determine who you are. I think that's a really important observation. And one of my observations generally is that, you can get yourself in the situation where your mind gets a bit fogged simply because of the stuff that you're consuming. And so the connection between what you eat and your attitude and your state of mind, it's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly fascinating. And I think whilst we're waiting for the main program to come, I just think there's lots of other things you can certainly do, but in order to fight and to get yourself ahead and to cover, I mean, a lot of the money I've pulled in working in the gig economy goes directly to my son's private school fees. So there's obviously a reason to do it, and I think when my job gets busy, I'm around millions of dollars and decisions. Clients, some of them will win lotto and they'll have a lotto win to take, but then suddenly they lose respect for money. And that's what dopamine does. And I think that we went on a wild spending binge. We bought a lot of stuff that our friends probably don't like anyway. And now we're going to have to undo all that good work. And I look at cars. I bought a Chinese SUV for my wife originally. Now it's my workhorse, and I get lots of compliments on the car, and it's a Chinese ripoff. And again, we've had this stage at the stage where, do you know if photos are real? Do you know if people are real? Do you know if anything's real? Why would you bother buying something unless you're going to trade it and try and sell it for a higher price? So I think what we're witnessing now is pretty much, I think we're coming to a bit of a crucial point with consumerism. To be honest, it's taken me a lot of time to wake up. I went through that, join the police, have good money when you're young, buy a car and flashy stuff, and get into stockbroking and think that things make you happy. Well, they don't. And I've learnt finally that really no one cares. If you keep up, you look at car manufacturers, they're the best marketers of all time, because especially Kia, I admit I have a Kia, they'll keep adding a few new features. And cars at one point were advertising that they had bloody Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and they make you want it. They make you want to upgrade as if you're not going to be happy in your top of the model. But then 3 weeks later, once it becomes a habit, you regret it. So I just think, you've got to break away from all this consumerism. I can see that families are going to bunker down. It's pretty much every person for themselves, and it's just going to turn into a shit show. But it's just a case of how long it goes on.
So one of the observations that you made was that markets are a bit crazy, and a lot of them actually don't really know what they're doing. And I just wanted to reflect on that, because if you look at the start of the year, pretty much all markets were saying, rates are going to get cut. We're going to see, the markets reacting to that. And now what we're seeing is, you've mentioned the RBA, very, very vague about where things are going to go. We've got the story in Japan where they moved the rate very slightly positive, but it's still very, very low. We've got the Fed meeting this week. We've got the Bank of England meeting this week. Almost always, it just seems to me that they're going to say, well, we're waiting for more information. We're not sure. So the markets were ahead of themselves. And it became, to my mind, and what do you think, Tony, a bit of a reinforcing philosophy, which then drove the markets higher. And then we had the AI piece of the puzzle. And as I've featured on my show previously, if you look at the overall market versus AI, well, the AI stocks moved up like NVIDIA, but a lot of the ones more broadly in the market didn't. So we've had those two fundamental drivers which have actually forced the markets higher. And it seems to me that, I don't know what you think, but a lot of the people in the markets who don't really know what's going on have just been buying the movement. So it's trading the momentum. But is it going to come unstuck, do you think?
Oh, it has to. It's you look at what happened in .com. It came unstuck. Yeah, there's lots of good news baked into markets. The lithium revolution, the EVs forever, saw lithium companies priced at absurd levels. And unfortunately, apart from those that have been taken over or managed to get in production, the rest of the sector has turned to complete shit. So I completely accept the fact that AI has driven it. The Magnificent Seven has pretty much driven the S&P 500 to these levels. It's been an absolute pain in the ass for those in ETFs that have bet against that. But I think it will come unstuck, just like price to income ratios are going to normalise to some extent, but it's just going to take some time and how it unwinds. You've just got a unique market here, but generally markets, not only do they revert to the norm, but then they'll overshoot to the downside. And I've been through 2 years of that in gold stocks, where the commodity has done nothing but outperform, and biotech stocks that have done nothing wrong. And it's just been 2 years of absolute pain. I've never had a tougher time, certainly in my career, than with the lack of funding, the lack of sentiment, And sentiment can turn. If you can have a little biotech stock go up 700% in a few days, you can certainly have things start to unwind. And this is a terrible analogy, but you're a new couple, you're getting right into it, and both of you are trying to hold in your bodily functions, whether that the toilet, passing gas, or whatever, having a shower. And then suddenly one breaks that, and then all bets are off. And I think that's how delicate our markets really are. And I'll only take a couple of negative sessions, and then the fear game's back on. So we're pretty much tiptoeing through the tulips at the moment. Volumes aren't convincing at all. And there's pockets of absolute stupidity, which you're still seeing in real estate, which you are seeing on the stock market. I remember 4 years ago, there were stocks that went up 10 times in a day. Well, I tell you what, these traders are making a comeback, and they've been in a couple of my stocks, and it was just, cue the Benny Hill theme song as to how clients reacted, Martin.
Yeah.
Because generally, whilst people are inherently good, we've got no idea what we're doing. And unfortunately, those with some idea what they're doing they're put into doubt over people that don't know what they're doing. It's a funny thing, markets, and understanding the psychology of it. And I tell you what, let's give this guy a PhD in investor psychology, to Cookie Boy. There you go.
Absolutely.
No pressure, Cookie.
And in fact, Cookie Boys, let me just put this one up. It's quite good. There you go. There's a lot of stocks which are cheap, and it's a great time to bring down your price average, full stop. And I guess that's the point. Portfolio view is also quite important, right? And at a time when everybody's zigging, there is an opportunity to zag and hold your nerve. And, I know a few people are doing that at the moment as well with what's going on. But if you go back to fundamentals like price earnings ratios, if you look at NVIDIA, price earnings on NVIDIA is about 32 to 35, depending on when you calculate it. And I remember the Ciscos of this world and the Sun Microsystems around the dot-com bubble, they were in the mid-30s as well. If you look at the price of Cisco today, it's significantly down. So if you take a long-term view, right, we're probably in bubble territory. But then, of course, there are others who buy the run, as it were, and essentially just saying, well, if everyone's doing it, I'll do it. So I guess that takes us to a bit of a fundamental question about trading versus long-term holding of stocks. And I get the sense from what you're saying, Tony, is that, in a portfolio world, there's an opportunity to do some trading to be able to actually, chase some value, but you're going to lose some as well as gain some. And I guess, how does that philosophy map to those who actually, maybe the Warren Buffett school of motoring that says, it's about finding those out of price stocks and then holding them until they become good? How do you mix those two philosophies?
Oh, that's a great question. And it should be known that Warren Buffett called his stocks the cigar puff stocks, where they had one last drag on them. And Warren was heavily into specs, but he became too big for the spec market. So he went into blue chips and long-term holds. But where I sit in my investment, speculative strategy, is that you cannot buy some stocks and then stick your head in the sand. You have to, I call it effective use of capital. So you do have to do a bit of trading and build up the fundamentally sound companies. And that means if something if I look on the screen and I'm seeing computerized trading, I'm seeing questionable buy orders and questionable sell orders, I'll act accordingly. So I try and assess how much of this announcement is real, how much is computer-driven buying, and how much is FOMO. So it is certainly, it's just a tough game. I don't know. I think the struggle now for the younger generation is the my son gets bored after 2 seconds watching a TikTok. The attention span, I just think that the brain structure, the psychological tendencies to hold anything, I think are gone for now. And what I've noted is that I have some great clients who they're accumulators. They're building positions on the back foot and they're prepared to hold, but they're very rare. And the growth in these numbers really is it's sweet fuck all, honestly, in how they become good investors. So I think everyone can look at a long-term chart and thinking, I should have held that stock. And we all get the warm and fuzzies. But, who'd have thought that a company like Monster Beverages would be one of the first companies to 100 bag selling energy drinks? So sometimes the best investments are close to you. I was talking to my son about Fortescue, how it was a 9-cent stock. Andrew Forrest backdoored in all those iron ore assets, and it went from 9 cents to about $290 equivalent. So he said, well, if you put 10 grand into that, you'd now be worth this, only if you're in prison without Wi-Fi or in a bloody coma. So let's be honest, most investors, speculators are totally full of it. And it was funny because at the house I was living, I used to get mail sent to me for Fortescue, and then a company called Redback Mining, which went to the moon as well. So I think it's a bit of luck, but generally humans are wired to buy high and sell low. So I think that they'll say there'll never be another Beatles, there'll never be another Rolling Stones, but there certainly won't be another Warren Buffett, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an interesting story of his philosophy and approach. And I have to say that whilst there is a lot of information around that people are using sometimes to try and make decisions, I think the information is quite filtered. And if you look carefully, some of the critical information that you really need to be able to actually make good decisions is not readily available unless you are in the corporate briefings that, of course, some of the big investment houses can get hold of. So it's actually quite difficult for, I think, ordinary investors to get on the inside track to know what's really going on. And my own concern is that, in fact, we have almost a two-tier market. We actually have larger entities who are able to play the inside field, and you've got a lot of ordinary investors who are looking in, as it were, over the fence, but are not actually able to benefit from the same information flows. And I get more and more angry with these selective briefings that seem to be more and more part of the landscape at the moment.
Yeah, I think, certainly some valid points there. And I know that stockbrokers / corporate people cop a lot of shit, but who else is going to fund these companies? You can't hand around the plate at church. These guys don't win Powerball. So there are people that are there that have to step up. And there are periods where those that are funding these companies actually are getting smashed as well. So what I tell mums and dads is to go to these conferences. These biotech, mining, these are where the guys running the companies, they're human beings as well. Go have your sausage rolls, your free quiche, and as much alcohol normally as you can drink, and eyeball them. And my best winners over many years come from going to a conference. And sometimes I'll come back from one thinking, is there a catch on this company? One of them was Spartan Resources, which was the old Gascoigne. I think they were trading at 11 cents, had everything going for them. And I worked out that their tax losses were worth multiples of what the company was trading at. And I thought, well, is this too good to be true? I had some people buy it. I didn't buy it, but 500-600% later, there are cases where it can work out, but there's a lot of times where, you know, you will buy something, your 13th man on the deal team, you've got a tip from your Uber driver or your taxi driver, and you get absolutely slaughtered. But I can assure you that, you know, even when you're as confident as you can be on the fundamentals of a company, oh man, you can look stupid for a number of years. And the beauty about having other people dictate what happens with a stock price is it makes me look like a genius, stupid, or a criminal. And it's like you're in the lolly aisle and someone comes up and slaps you in the face because the 3-year-old's chucking a tanty. It's just amazing. But you've got to, I guess we're in, information is everywhere. It's quick. People don't have much of an attention span. They'll jump in and out. But sometimes the best trading tool is your backside. So I think, yes, markets, they'll have a correction. And then people say, well, if the index is correct, then what hope for the small caps? Well, tell you what, the small caps have had a 2-year train wreck, whilst all the other stocks have done well. And that's, I look at it in the way that I really fear once any other assets such as property is even fairly priced, the pain we're going to go through. But at this point, my point is that it's clear that I think complacency's taken over. We'll just glide into the rates decisions. But again, once people start losing their jobs, watch out. And then once we cut our spending, then businesses' defaults go through the roof. It's going to happen. There's no easy way out of it. You just can't control or delete the economy in the world, Martin.
No, and you mentioned the cuts. In fact, Cookie Boy asked, so when cuts, and it is a good question. There was an article that came out the other day here that said that, a lot of people were now suggesting that maybe it would be next year before rate cuts were coming into Australia. And the Michelle Bullock interview, which I listened to, I have to say these press conferences that the RBA runs are just completely Mickey Mouse, right? So very simple Dorothy Dixon questions, very simple answers, didn't really actually provide any extra insight. But at least they're being, quote, transparent. But, she did say it's equally balanced. It might go up, might go down, might go sideways, and, we'll have to watch and wait and see. And it seems to me that that's what a lot of central bankers are actually doing, and they're waiting to see because they don't know either. So the worry I've got, Tony, is that a lot of people have been banking on the holdout. So I've got a mortgage. I know that mortgage rates is high, but hopefully rates will come down and I can then find a bit of relief that way. And the longer this goes on, the more likely it is that the rate cuts, when they come, will be later and will be shallower. So my own perspective is that those who are holding their breath and hoping that rates are going to come quickly by way of cutting are probably fooling themselves.
I totally agree. And then you have to look at it from a family by family balance sheet perspective as to how can you cut all the costs out and how can you finally live at or below your means. And I think we're about to get some expensive lessons in that we've been living well above our means. From the point of bloody socialising, going out, eating out, buying a pint or schooner, I just think, we're in for a massive lesson. And I look back at a tweet, which I didn't save, and it was saying, one of the epicenters of the housing bubble, Toronto, around 1970, 2.5 times income for a house. And that was the same level for Manlyvale, where I lived. You paid 3 times. I paid less than 3 times to live in Bondi. It's insanity. And you think, well, and then there was the argument that rates I copped it, that people said that rates will never go up in our lifetime. Oh, geez. come on, think about it. Think about it. We're still nowhere near the norm for rates, but you look at the damage. Look at the damage it's done. People on sadly 1.99% interest rate for 2 years, straight up to 6%. And that, if that doesn't affect your lifestyle, I don't know what will, because it affects your psyche, how you spend. So, you know, you look at the poor Japanese that have, you know, they squirreled money away and didn't spend, so they've had lost decades. I'm just hoping that, you know, I know we've been saying it for a while, that best case, do we do what Ireland's done and have a bit of a correction? But geez, what a time to be functioning in the economy at the moment. And what, you know, some of the lessons our kids are going to get are, the beauty of it is I give my 15-year-old son a life lecture on every trip, and he's worried about his future, and he's worried about cars, he's worried about should he take a salary or commission, but at least he's not worried about owning a house.
Yeah, and talking about you know, what a lot of people are scratching their head and thinking about at the moment, one of the observations I have is that we seem to have the situation where the concept of debt is now absolutely wired into society. You know, if you went to university, you've got a HECS debt. If you've got a credit card or a buy now, pay later, you know, you're running debt to stand still. And then, of course, you've got the mortgage and other debts too. And it seems to me that we've got a situation now where the idea of being up to your eyes in debt is the norm. And I have to say I'm quite concerned about that. And one of the reasons why I think this is a really important conversation at the moment is because of where interest rates have gone, because debt is now costing a lot more. At one stage, interest rates were really low, and so the cost of debt was quite low. It's no longer the case. But it seems to me there's a broader question here about education and philosophy. And you know, even in schools, there's not enough focus on helping people to understand the implications and consequences of debt. And as you say, the rates at the moment, they're not, you know, over a long-term average that high. So there is a really big question as to whether we've built this whole sandcastle on, you know, a very, very weak foundation of more and more and more debt. And, you know, you can put charts like this up, which shows that the global debt has pretty much gone through the roof in US dollar terms, you know, and still rising. So we've actually got ourselves where society, individuals, and countries are now built on debt. And I suppose the question in my mind is whether this is ultimately unsustainable, or whether we'll just go on increasing the debt and increasing the debt and increasing the debt, and telling future generations, oh, well, everybody just has debt. You know, it's the norm. What do you think about that?
That's 100% spot on. And apart from divorces and women, cars have been my second weakness. And I've had the chance to simply sell a few shares and buy a car with cash. But I seem to keep making the same bloody mistake of thinking I'll just take out a loan, and then you're used to the car in 3 weeks, yet the loan follows you around for 5 years. And that's my regret, because at the time when I had that chance, because I was in the fog of, I was overdosing in dopamine, some of my companies were actually overvalued. And all I had to do was sell a bit and then not owe a cent on the car, not have to go through any debt. Admittedly, I locked this house in for 5 years at 2.64, but I could have sold what was at the time an expensive portfolio and owed a lot less. So I tell you what, my kids are certainly going to get some lectures. And here's my chance really to reiterate, look, I've made some mistakes and you can learn from it. You do not have to make the same mistakes. You do not have to eat shit food and not go to the gym until you're 40. You can be different. You can be like some of my best younger clients, who are people that are accumulators. They know the key is slow and steady and no stupid debt. But I think you're going to see in the newspaper where Yeah, I think we reached almost peak insanity when that 8-year-old kid. There was a story on the 8-year-old that was a landlord. Yeah, I mean, like, are you friggin' kidding me? I think, yeah, that was kind of, I don't know, the bell's been rung a few times, but that was peak insanity. I don't know, you probably saw that story.
I did, and of course, there's a lot more. And Edwin and I discussed it yesterday on the show. We think that it might be connected to the fact that the father is also an author and writes books on property and finance. So it may be a little bit more broad than just, a kid who actually has a property.
Yeah.
There's always more to it, but it is interesting, and it goes back to this question of, if everybody's going in one direction, should you follow the herd, or should you actually stop and think about it and say, hang on a moment, is there a different path? And to my mind, the whole concept of getting to grips with what debt is and how it actually can strangle you over time is actually something which I think is really important. I've seen so many people who actually struggle with this whole concept because everybody else is living a life powered by different forms of debt, and it's become the norm, and they work out now how much more debt they can get by what they can afford to pay back, rather than actually thinking about this more holistically. And their lifestyle is effectively now inflated to a much higher level simply because of the amount of debt in the system. Now, the banks love that, of course, because they earn interest on it, and people can keep up with the Joneses as a result of it. But is it healthy? Is it wise? And all I'm wanting to just question is, it is the way that society's been steered into this debt-driven, debt-looming future sensible? And of course, governments have the same problem because, of course, we've got massive amounts of debt at the government level too. So I just think sometimes we should just pause and think about it. And, there are alternatives, even if those alternatives may mean owning less and living a different type of life. But maybe it's a better life because you're in more control of your own destiny rather than being in hock to the banks or whoever else.
Yeah, couple of things there. So obviously Juliana, my future wife, she's from Hungary, and she's not on social media. She doesn't snap herself taking photos of food. She doesn't give a shit about what anyone else does. She doesn't need fancy stuff. But I think what really has helped me in life is her brutal honesty. She's just honest. Will tell me if I'm sucking at this, will tell me if I'm cooking the wrong way. But she is brutally honest. And I think the flip side of that is you get an honest playfulness at the same time. But I think we, as parents, we've had it built into us that our kids don't want to hear the truth. Let's give a merit certificate to little Johnny, and let's accept that winning doesn't matter, succeeding doesn't matter. You have to go out and get debt. You have to get a HEX debt. You have to marry someone you eventually hate and lose 80% of your assets. You do not have to do that. But who's going to have the balls to go in and start teaching kids this stuff? Tell them the truth. Teach them about a price to income ratio. Teach them about loan serviceability. Teach them about the depreciation in a car and what having to work in the gig economy, the value of money, the effort required just to maintain a completely fake lifestyle. I have a laugh. I have coffee with a client every month, and I do it in a beautiful suburb, and I drive along the street, and I've never seen one rich person, well, I assume they are, on their bloody balcony. Not one on that street. And I derive a huge amount of humour reading the Sunday paper in Perth as to how great a house is, how it made them feel like they're in a tranquil Balinese environment, and they're just waiting for a greater idiot to buy the house off them. I mean, I'd love to have a serious conversation with someone as does a dust collecting mansion actually make you happy? Because my guess is they get the dopamine hit, then suddenly they've got to find a greater idiot. But at the moment, egos are so up there that they might luckily find a buyer. And I just look at the mansion, how mansions are being thrown around. I've had we got to build a house in a good suburb, a new house. I'm just as happy in the little villa I'm in now. So I guess society will adjust to it. The kids coming through, our price to income ratio is going to get down to 6 to 7 times in Sydney or Melbourne. Well, history will tell us, and Morgan Kelly would say, yes, they will. That means they're probably 4 to 5 times in Perth, and Perth's still affordable. And that's what I'm noticing from my survey of the drunken Irish, Martin.
Plenty of those around, particularly in Perth.
Yeah.
And look, one other observation before we close out, because I just want to take the conversation one step further. Yeah. Understanding the value of money and the concept of money is something that's really, really important. A lot of people, I think, these days, because it's all digital, they don't have a feel of the value of money. And I watch kids specifically who seem to assume that their parents have infinite supplies of money. They just waggle the plastic card and magically it happens, right? There's no consequences, therefore, when you spend. There's no feeling of the loss of physical cash going out of your wallet when you actually go buy something, right? And I think that's really, really important. So one of the observations is that when you start giving kids bank accounts when they're very young, and even things like being able to move money around digitally, you actually lose the sense of loss when you spend. And I think that is a really, really important observation, because I'm seeing a generation now who just assume infinite supply. And that, of course, is just not true, is it?
No, hell no. And I think we're eventually, my way of thinking is we're going to get to a rerun of that 70s show, to be honest. Consumerism will find its way out. You're still going to have all the social media. But yeah, I guess the case of with the stupid consumerism, I just reiterate to Lachlan, my son, I said, just get clothes that bloody fit you. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. If it doesn't fit you, you don't need a fancy car that you have to park in a disabled spot so you don't get scratched. There's nothing wrong with having good stuff that just gets the job done. And unfortunately, I'm 52 now, that I've been through all the cycles. I've been through boom, bust, and finally I've worked it all out that a lot of things are simply, it's a fugazi, it's not real, you don't need it. For me, a good piece of steak brings happiness. Being able to go to the supermarket and not feel pressured as to what I'm buying feels good. I get more joy out of finding cheap protein than a cheap car. It's how you go about life. But again, humans are sheep. Humans are sheep. And what I've found is that through my driving experience, you'll see 30 cars lined up in the left lane. So I'll go the right lane. And what's helped me is that Perth drivers are so polite, I don't have to be that much of a bully to get where I want. So we line up, we do stupid things, we fall for all these scams, but that's just human behavior. Because if you look at all the education on markets, I mean, stock markets go back to the 1600s. We've had bubbles since then. We've had mispricing of assets. Fear is temporary, greed is perpetual, and human stupidity is infinite.
That's probably right. Yes. Well, Tony, as always, great insights from you tonight, and I want to say thank you very much for coming on again. I've put the link to your site in the chat, and I've put it up on screen a couple of times. So if people want to find out more about your stocks and things, they can go there. And I wish you well with your traverses and your conversations in Uber. If you go on doing that, that's fascinating. I actually get great insights from my one-to-one conversations with people as well, because it's really interesting and really important to hear and listen, as well as actually be on transmit all the time. So I think it's a really good thing to do. So any last thoughts before we close out? What I think we're saying is this. world that we're in is, a little bit wobbly at the moment, and probably some more uncertainty ahead.
True. Humans generally are doing the best. They've been bullshitted in multiple directions. We're going to pay the financial price of it. And I guess you only realise in the brightest sun that you truly suck at cleaning car windows, and that will not be my third job.
Very, very important point there, Tony. Well, thank you very much. Have a great evening over there, and I look forward to catching up down the track. I'm going to take you offline, and I'm going to close the show generally. See you later, Tony.
Thank you.
There you go, folks. Well, I hope you found that stimulating, interesting. The thing about Tony is he's always calling it as it is, and excellent for that. Now, next week, Cameron Murray is coming back. We're going to talk about the housing hijack. He's just published a book, and we're going to talk a little bit more detail about that and what his research has shown. So join us for that. Otherwise, we will take a final look at the dogs. They're still in their sleeping positions. They haven't really gone very far at all. You may have had a couple of shakes and what have you, because they did wander around occasionally, but they're still there. So that's the story there. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the show next Tuesday live. And if you want to catch up on other shows, meantime, of course, they're all up. I make shows most days. So please like, subscribe, and share these shows. Really appreciate that. Thanks for all the comments and all the super chats and everything else that's been thrown in there. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. This is Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics signing off. Cheerio.